Assertiveness would be, I'm going to make my concerns known, but I'm going to try to do it in a way that doesn't backfire. Okay, well, that needs some explanation. How am I going to make my concerns known without backfiring? In an ideal world, you would want to be sensitive to the things that he's at risk of. He's at risk of anxiety. Well, how can you help with that? You can keep the conversation short, concrete, one problem at a time. Don't bring up the past unless it's pertinent to the present. Don't talk about feelings. He doesn't understand feelings. Just talk in terms of needs. So you are going to let your concerns be known. You're not going to put them in the closet. You need to talk to him about it, but when you talk to him about it, you need to keep it, here's the summary. Keep your message short, concrete, simple. Talk in terms of needs, and only talk about that one concern. Don't drag 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 other concerns in on that conversation. Don't bring up the past unless it's pertinent to the present. I know sometimes you have to bring up the past because the thing never got resolved. So if you would just think in terms of how can I get this message across without raising his anxiety too much. Anytime you need to have the talk, you can bet he's already going to be anxious about it. So we're not talking about anxiety elimination. We're talking about anxiety reduction, which now you've reduced him reverting to some form of shutdown or meltdown. So in this way, you were able to assert yourself and give him your good message, and it didn't get lost this time because you've always had a good message, but your delivery raised his anxiety, and then your good message got lost. Today I want to talk to the NT spouses out there, especially the NT wives, and I know that your husband on the autism spectrum is not providing you with the emotional reciprocity to the degree that you want, but bear in mind he has a developmental disorder. That means developmentally his social and emotional brain is somewhat stunted relative to his logical brain. So that area is immature, we will say, and I have a lot of NT wives that say, yeah, maturity level, he's probably more like a 14-year-old. And I don't mean that in some kind of sarcastic way. He is low in social and emotional intelligence, which means he's low in social and emotional needs. He doesn't have a lot of desire to be social and outgoing and to engage in a bunch of chit chat and hang out with people. And he's not really in touch with his feelings or other people's feelings, so he may even view emotions as getting in the way of completing tasks. So he is just not in this ballpark of needing a lot of social and emotional attention. You, on the other hand, are no doubt high in social intelligence, high in emotional intelligence, and quite honestly, as much as I hate to say this because it sounds so negative at some level, he's down here and he is never, ever going to match you. Now, I'm not saying he's off the chart. He's still in the ballpark, and he can still provide some emotional reciprocity. And I have support groups and therapy groups that can help him work on that. But as much as it pains me to say this, don't ever expect him to come up to your level of social and emotional intelligence and therefore providing you with the degree of emotional reciprocity that you want. I've run into this myself. In fact, my mother told me several times as a child that she thought my dad preferred to be at work more than he preferred to be at home. So I know this is a painful realization that so he's never ever going to provide me with the intimacy, the empathy and stuff that I want? Most likely not. That's not to say he can't come up a little bit. And that's not to say that maybe you can reduce your expectations a little bit. And I know that's a difficult thing to hear too. And some of you NT wives are saying right now, hell, I've already done that. I've already lowered my expectations a long time ago. But the moral to this story is you cannot fix his deficits. It's a hardwired deal that's unfixable. And you've wasted a lot of time and energy trying to fix the deficit. And it was not only a waste of time and energy, it made a bad problem worse because it downloaded in his mind as you were being critical, you were being over-controlling, and it raised his anxiety, which made him even less inclined to want to engage with you. Okay? So we can't fix the deficit there. But the good news is he has a lot more strengths than he does deficits. And so the moral to this video here is you and he both need to find his areas of strength. I'm sure you already know many of them. I'm sure he does. And you want to capitalize on those strengths. You want to focus on that. Spend your time and energy, both of you, on his strengths. Capitalize on those. Don't waste another second wasting time on fixing the deficit. That just ends in a disaster, as you know. So, what are some of his strengths? That's not a rhetorical question. I'm asking you, what are some of his strengths? In the comment section below, I want to hear from the NTs, and I want you to begin thinking about what are some of the strengths that he already has that we can build on and use those to enhance the relationship, establish communication, help him to more closely approximate you on the social and emotional scale. Okay?
I'm going to just give you a brief overview of why some of the traits of ASD level 1 cause a problem in the relationship. With true dyed-in-the-wool ASD level 1, it is a developmental disorder. And that's the key term. What does that mean, developmental? It means that the social emotional portion of the brain is underdeveloped relative to the logical part of the brain. So if you have ASD level 1, you're somewhat low in social and emotional intelligence. That doesn't mean that you don't have social skills or that you don't have empathy, although she may argue that point. But it does mean that you are low in social and emotional needs, which is paramount. And I like to use the analogy of an eagle versus a chicken. An eagle has wings, uses them often, needs them to survive. If the eagle did not have wings, it would not survive. A chicken has wings, and it could fly, maybe 5 feet, but it has to run and jump, and it might fly for 5 to 10 feet. But it doesn't need wings to survive. Both of them have wings. Okay? So, if you are low in social and emotional intelligence, you are also by default low in social and emotional needs. You don't necessarily, I'm generalizing here, I'm guessing most of the guys in here, they're not really that interested in talking about feelings, how they feel. They may be out of touch about, for the most part, how they feel. They're really out of touch about how she feels most of the time. And when she starts talking about feelings, it is kind of uncomfortable and abstract conversation, especially if she says, well, honey, I feel this way about such and such, and she's expecting you to take how she feels and then apply it to some course of action you're supposed to take. That's really confusing as well. Now, I said low in social and emotional intelligence, and I'm also saying high in logic, but sometimes the logic is a bit too high. If you have an overly logical brain, you have a brain that is an overthinking brain that tends to get stuck on one detail, hyper-focused on one detail and fails to see the big picture, hard to generalize, those types of things. So that, in a worst-case scenario, you have a high logical brain that's almost an overthinking brain, and you're low in social and emotional intelligence. Now you take her, the NT wife, you have damn near the 180-degree opposite scenario. So you can see immediately why we have this problem. She is high in social and emotional intelligence. She's not as high in logic as you, but she has logic, of course, but it's not up there with you. But she has a lot of social emotional intelligence, and by default, she has what? A lot of social and emotional needs. She is the eagle that has to use those damn wings to survive. Chicken, you could chop a chicken's wings off. He would be fine. I'm missing my wings, but I can still do what I want to do. She has to have her social and emotional needs met to a significant degree, or she is going to do what your wife has done. She's going to complain. She's going to get angry. She's going to be hurt. She's going to talk to you about how she's emotionally deprived and has Cassandra syndrome, and Lord only knows what else she has thrown at you. So this is why we have that dilemma. So the moral to this little speech is it shouldn't be a big surprise to you why there's conflict. And nobody is doing anything wrong. You aren't bad people in here that are behaving badly, and you're purposely trying to be selfish, insensitive, uncaring, narcissistic, sociopathic, and whatever other things she's called you. I'm guessing that the vast majority, if not everybody in here, wants to make her happy. You really wanted to make her happy. You tried to do right, but what I've run into with guys that on the spectrum is they haven't quite figured out how to get that done, and they often say, it doesn't matter what I say or do, it's never good enough. And honestly, they're tired of being a failure. And they're tired of hurting her. And so what ends up happening is they kind of start disconnecting. Because, you know, if you're no good at basketball, and every time you get out there on the court, you're an embarrassment to the team, eventually you go, this, and you sit on the bench. So if you really suck at having that strong emotional reciprocity that your super intelligent, in the social and emotional sense, wife has, and you can never quite get up there, at an unconscious level, or maybe even a conscious level, you kind of lose hope, and you've kind of lost faith in yourself. Your confidence is in the toilet. Your self-esteem is probably in the toilet. And you almost feel like you're better off just to mind your own business because it's too much trouble. Some of the traits of the disorder look like selfishness, insensitivity, narcissism. She attaches negative motives to the things that you say and do. Because he said this or did that, or because he didn't say what I wanted him to say or didn't do what I wanted him to do, therefore he doesn't give a shit about the relationship. Or his work is more important than me. Or his special interest, he's married to his special interest, not so much me. I'm not important to him. She fills in the blanks with that stuff, which keeps you perpetually in the doghouse. So that is kind of like I felt like I needed to lay some groundwork down to let you know why you're in the position, approximately why you're in the position that you're in, but also to validate that you're not a bad guy. Although some of you aren't convinced of that. There's a big difference between healthy guilt and toxic guilt. Healthy guilt is, I seem to say the wrong thing sometimes, and I don't follow through like she wants me to sometimes, and that's a mistake. I intend to do better. That's just healthy guilt. There's nothing wrong with that. But some of the guys in here have made the leap from healthy guilt to toxic guilt, and that is, I'm always messing up. I never get it right. I'm always doing the wrong thing, saying the wrong thing, or I'm supposed to be doing or saying something, and I never do that. And I'm always failing her. And that toxic guilt leads to toxic shame because I'm a social failure in her eyes, therefore I'm a failure as a person. In other words, because I supposedly do all these bad things, therefore I am a bad person. And I run into guys on the spectrum that they are there with the toxic shame, that they really believe that at their core they're flawed, defective somehow, which really makes it almost impossible to have a relationship with her, because if you've gone that far, you've convinced yourself that there's no use in trying. When I try, it's not even a neutral thing. If I try, I make it worse. And so a lot of you have stopped trying. And of course, just like I said a minute ago, she makes the false assumption that he stopped trying because he doesn't care about the relationship, when that's not the case.
Hey, this is Mark Hutten. Would you like to schedule a one-on-one Zoom call? Okay, it's so simple. Just look under any of my videos in the description area. Click on this Calendly link. Now you see my calendar. Pick your month, your day, anytime that's available. Enter your name and email address. Then you'll get a follow-up email with the Zoom link on the day and time that you picked. And voila, we will talk.